Alright guys, so this tutorial we're going to work on the dodging and burning. Look at this picture. There's really not a big issue with the picture, but if you will notice on the right hand side we've got warmth. We've got orange light on the right hand side. If you look on the left hand side we've got coolness. We've got the coolness of the stairs, the darkness. As you can't see in the picture, right to my left was a row of trees. The sun was coming up over top, so the trees were shading the part all the way to about halfway where the couple is, and the sun was peeking over. I don't really see anything absolutely wrong with this picture. I know that I've had a couple of photographers that I've asked for critique from have said, besides the fact of it being centered too much, have said that they don't really care for the two different colors. I don't mind it. I actually kind of find it more of an artistic feel, you know, because two light and dark joining together, get all cliche, whatever you want to do with it. I don't see that big of a deal with it. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the dodging and burning tool. The burning tool, like when you burn something, becomes dark. When the dodge tool becomes light. I always forget the dodge, so I have to think of burn first and the opposite, and there you go. So we're going to look on the left-hand side over here. I've got my mouse circling to show you guys. And you see like this lollipop-looking thing. Go underneath, you've got the dodge, burn, and sponge tool. We're not going to worry about the sponge tool. We're going to do the dodge tool. Now the thing to notice on this is that the dodge tool is regulated by the brush size and shape up here. You're not going to be using the brush tool. You want to have the brush with the applied use of dodging or burning. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to dodge because I want to make it lighter. I'm going to work on the left hand side and work to the right. Good way to do that, just kind of work across the picture and just as you read from left to right. So we've got the dodge tool down here. Let's go up to the size and let's pick a size. I don't want it to be hard at all because again, like before we learned in the cloning, I'm going to show you. If I did hard, look at that. So let me take that out of here, and again, I made the mistake, I always forget when I'm doing these tutorials, not to duplicate my layer. Duplicate, there, I'm good. Alright, so now I've got a duplicated layer. I'm going to take off my hardness. I always go for this brush right here. It's a default preset, it's about 339 pixels, size, 0 hardness. For some reason I just happen to click there on any time I'm editing a picture, and then I can kind of look to see how big my brush is. Look on the left hand side of the picture right here. I'm circling the mouse. Look how big that is. That's decent since we're going to dodge and burn the steps, but say I wanted to dodge or burn the subject, that'd be way too big. Because look, as I'm going over the female, I would be getting a halo effect around her, which I don't want. So that's when I would have to bring down the size. Alright, so let me bring it back up to the default. Oh, I guess it's default of 131. And I like to use it about 339. Okay, so there we are. So we want to dodge this. We want to make it lighter. I'm just going to go along and just paint as though it's the brush tool. No big deal. Let's kind of lighten this up in here. It kind of evens out the tones a little bit. Like I said before, I'm really not that concerned about it. And, but for the sake of this class, it's perfect because I have a picture that I can dodge and burn on both. Alright, so now let's go down to our layers palette in the right hand corner. I've got my mouse circling. I don't really care for how light it was, so let's just adjust the opacity and look at it. Let's go down to 0. It's pretty dark. Move it up to 50, 40, not bad. Let's move it up, lighter and lighter. I'm going to keep it 100% just for purposes of showing you guys the difference, but you can play with the opacity anytime. So now that we've done the dodging, let's burn the other side. We kind of want to make the other side a little bit darker. So let's take the burn tool, and again, we want to check the colors. So I wanted to flatten my image since I've already used that layer once. Let's duplicate it. Alright, so there is my, because I was done with dodging, so now that I'm on to burning, I want a whole new duplicate layer. Alright, so here we go. You see my brush tool. It's got a default size of 411. Yeah, that probably works. We'll just kind of judge, bring it over top of your subject and kind of see what you're going to do. And bring it down to about there. Alright, and then just paint over top, just as though you're using the brush tool. Really not that much to do with it. You can see it getting darker. And again, I'm over here. My mouse is circling up over here on the right hand side, getting darker. I'm going to show you something. Typically in this picture, well, I guess it would kind of work. I was going to say, you really don't want to dodge the other side since we already lightened it, but an alternative, since you are dodging this so dark over here, we could have not, burning, I'm sorry, since we were burning over here, we could have not dodged this side. We could have left it. Well, since I did already flatten it, I really can't go back. I can just burn over top of what I did and make it darker. So I kind of have the same exposure on both sides. I don't have the same color. That's going to be another lesson where we go over select a change of color. That's going to be a great lesson that will revolutionize your photography editing. So you just see we get a little bit darker. It kind of gives a little bit more contrast. It works somewhat in this picture as a vignette. I love vignettes when they're very, very, very low opacity. I think they pull into the subject. If you don't know what a vignette is, if you're new, it's the dark edge burn, and essentially it's using the burn tool. You're going to burn the edges to make it darker, but you want it on a very low opacity, so when you look at the picture you don't really see it, but it automatically draws your eyes inward to the lighter. So that is pretty much dodging and burning. As you can see, we've kind of darkened it up. Let's turn it off and look at it. That's how light it is, dark. Looks a little better. I'm really not a fan of how dark it is over here on the right hand side. If I wanted, I could go back and dodge it, adjust the opacity. Another thing to remember when we are doing the dodging and burning, we need to make sure we stay on the range of midtones and exposure just to have a look. You may want to adjust your shadows and highlights. That's a little bit more advanced in this course right at this moment, so we'll get into that. But for now, just stick to midtones. That's going to be your safest bet, and we will go from there. All right, let me know if you have any questions.